Hello, fellow classmates. As you can see, I have decided to present my research topic through a different aesthetic approach via video. I've never made a video before, so I thought this would be something, different and exciting. This flag behind me is a Russian flag. Russia has been experiencing a population decline within the past century. They're currently located at number 9 on the top 10 most populous country list, and they're predicted to be knocked off that list entirely by 2050. And this estimation really enticed me to further investigate why this is happening. And I've discovered there are about 4 to 5 primary reasons why their population is shrinking. The main reason is due to urbanization. When the Soviet Union collapsed, many Siberian and southern central villages contained industrial facilities, and the factories in these villages went obsolete. And when these factories closed down, the jobs went out the window, and this caused an internal migration of individuals and families to migrate into larger cities such as Moscow and St. Petersburg for economic opportunity. And as we all know, people generally have small families who live in cities. Another reason why the population is shrinking is because of high mortality rates. Their mortality rate has gone skyrocketed. It's currently and present and previously. I'm sure many of you have seen or heard jokes about Russians being portrayed as a bunch of drunkards, and this really is a stretch too far from the truth. 35% of Russian men have a life expectancy at age 55. My Russian friend Lana can attest to this. Her father passed away in his 40s from a heart attack, which was induced from alcoholism. And the Russian government actually stepped in the early 90s, and they formulated a campaign to support and prevent possible future alcohol-related deaths. This was beneficial for only a year or two, but on a long-term basis, it wasn't too helpful. Of course, there's also a lot of high suicide and homicide rates, which contribute to the high mortality rate that they face. Another reason is their low fertility. Their total fertility rate has been fluctuating between 1.2 and 2.4 since the 1980s. And Russian women typically complete their childbearing years at a very early age, as early as 19, between 19 and 24, and they generally only have one child. Very seldom do they have 2 or 3 children. And a lot of Russian women attend college to attain a formal education because they have a desire to enter the workforce. And shockingly enough, in the early 90s, they faced a contraceptive avoidance issue. There were there were only 2 condom manufacturers in the country, and both of those companies went out of business because they couldn't afford to import latex. Counterintuitively, this contributed to low fertility rates. Many Russian women resort to abortion if they happen to get pregnant after their childbearing years, or if they couldn't afford a child, or they didn't want a child for whatever reason, they would go ahead and abort it. Also, immigration with an E, of course, is another reason why their population numbers have been dwindling. Um, my friend Lana, who's from Russia, immigrated to California in 2006, primarily due to her sexual orientation. There's a lot of unjust laws and anti-gay protests and violent hate crimes towards LGBT members in Russia, and this really enables particular LGBT members to flee the country out of fear of their safety. And not only this minority category does this apply to, but other minorities such as a lot of ethnic minority groups leave the country for whatever reason. Just they don't feel safe or they get discriminated against, and it definitely leaves a dent in their population. And it's also very imperative to know that there were three major immigration waves in Russia. The first immigration wave was termed as a brain drain. Hundreds of thousands of Russians fled the country either voluntarily or they were exiled because of their opposing political views. The second immigration wave occurred after World War II when Russian soldiers were released from German captivity. They decided they didn't want to go back to their motherland. And the final immigration wave occurred in the second half of the 1980s, and it was known as a massive ethnic immigration phenomenon. A lot of Jewish Russians went to Israel, and a lot of German descendants living in Russia went back to Germany. As a conclusion to all of this, President Vladimir Putin has addressed this demographic crisis as a top priority, and I'm going to show you another clip, a short clip by a World War II Russian submarine called the Scorpion, where I'm going to interview my friend Lana on this subject matter and get her insight on this argument that I am investigating. Okay, hold on one second.